Listen, there's something happening right now in your relationship, in your life, in your reality that you don't even see. You think everything is fine. You think you're being a good man, understanding, patient, mature. But you know what's really happening. You're digging your own grave as a man and you don't even realize you're holding the shovel. Every single day there are these moments, these invisible moments that slip right past you. And each time you let them pass, each time you forgive without even realizing what you're forgiving, you become less and less in her eyes until one day you wake up and you're nothing. Nothing. A shadow walking around in your own life, in your own home, wondering how the hell you got here. You want to know the truth? The real truth that nobody tells you? It's not the big betrayals that destroy a man's position in a relationship. It's not when she cheats. It's not when she screams at you. It's not when there's some dramatic scene where everything explodes. No, no, no. Those are obvious. Those you can see coming. Those you know how to react to. What destroys you, what really destroys you, are these invisible cuts, these tiny moments of disrespect that you don't even register as disrespect, because they come wrapped in excuses, in explanations, in you're overreacting, and you're too sensitive, and why are you making such a big deal out of nothing? But here's what you need to understand, and I mean really understand this. When a woman disrespects you in these small ways and you let it slide, you're not being understanding, you're not being mature, you're teaching her that you have no boundaries, no self-respect, no backbone. And once she learns that lesson, once she really internalizes it, you're done. You might still be in the relationship, you might still be living in the same house, sleeping in the same bed, but you're done as a man in her eyes. Let me tell you what I'm talking about and you'll recognize this immediately, because every man who's been in a relationship has experienced at least one of these, probably all of them, and didn't even realize what was happening. The first one, and this is going to make some people uncomfortable, but I don't care about comfort. I care about truth. When she uses her period, her hormones, her time of the month as an excuse to disrespect you. And before anyone starts with the outrage, I'm not saying women don't experience real physical and emotional challenges during menstruation. Of course they do. But here's the thing. Here's what you need to pay attention to. Watch how she behaves with others during this same time. Watch how she talks to her boss, her colleagues, her friends, strangers in the store. Is she screaming at them? Is she insulting them? Is she treating them with contempt? No. Then why is it that with you, suddenly she can't control herself? I'll tell you why. Because she's made a calculation, a decision, maybe not even consciously, but she's decided that you're safe to disrespect. You're the one who will take it. You're the one who will forgive it. You're the one who will accept the excuse. And every time you do, every single time you say, oh, it's okay, I understand, it's just your hormones, you're telling her that your dignity, your respect, your position as a man is worth less than her temporary discomfort. You think you're being understanding, you're not. You're being weak, and she knows it. Deep down in that primal part of her brain that evaluates men, that decides who's worthy of respect and who's not, she's filing you away in the category of doormat. And once you're in that category, good luck getting out. Here's what happens next. She starts testing this newfound power. Maybe next month it's worse. Maybe the disrespect lasts longer. Maybe it becomes more public. And you, thinking you're being a good partner, keep forgiving, keep understanding, keep making excuses for her behavior. Meanwhile, she's losing more and more respect for you with every passing cycle. The second situation, and this one destroys more men than anything else, when she gets drunk and says things, does things, acts in ways that humiliate you, disrespect you, tear you down, and then the next day it's all, I was drunk, I didn't mean it, that wasn't really me. Let me tell you something about alcohol, something that everybody knows but nobody wants to admit. Alcohol doesn't change who you are, it reveals who you are. It removes the mask, the social conditioning, the filters we all use to navigate polite society. What comes out when she's drunk? That's what she really thinks. That's what she really feels. That's who she really is when the inhibitions are gone. I had a friend, a successful guy, built his own business from nothing, respected in his community. His wife would get drunk at family gatherings, at parties with friends, and she would mock him. Not subtle jokes, not playful teasing, vicious mockery. She'd talk about their sex life, his performance, his body, his insecurities that he'd shared with her in moments of vulnerability. And everyone would be uncomfortable, looking away, trying to change the subject. And the next day, oh honey, I'm so sorry. I don't know what came over me. You know that's not how I really feel. And he forgave her. Every time. Because he loved her. Because he thought that's what good husbands do. Because he believed the lie that the drunk version wasn't the real version. You know what happened? It got worse. The mockery became more cruel, more public, more frequent. Why? Because she learned there were no consequences. She could unleash her contempt for him when drunk and face no repercussions when sober. This is what men don't understand. When you forgive without consequences, you're not showing love, you're showing weakness. You're not being noble, you're being naive. You're not saving your relationship, you're destroying your position in it. The third invisible situation, and this one is particularly insidious because it happens right in front of your children, when she undermines your authority as a father. You tell the kids they can't have something, she gives it to them. You set a boundary, she breaks it. You establish a rule, she makes an exception. And she does this in front of them, making sure they see that dad's word doesn't really matter, that mum is the real authority, that dad is just there. You know what she's doing? She's buying cheap authority. She's making herself the good guy, the fun parent, the one who really cares, at the expense of your position not just as a father but as a man in that household. And your children, they're learning that dad can be overruled, that dad's decisions don't really matter, that dad is secondary. I've seen this destroy men. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, like erosion. Day by day, decision by decision, until one day the man realizes his own children don't respect him. They go to mum for everything important. Dad becomes the ATM, the chauffeur, the one who fixes things, but not a real authority figure. And it started with these small moments of undermining that he let slide because he didn't want to fight, didn't want to seem controlling, didn't want to create conflict. But here's what you need to understand. When she undermines you in front of the children, she's not just disrespecting you as a partner, she's destroying your role as a father. And if you let it happen, if you forgive it without consequences, you're complicit in your own diminishment. The fourth situation, and this one is so common that most men don't even recognize it as disrespect, when she humiliates you in social situations. Maybe it's a joke at your expense that goes too far. Maybe it's revealing something private you told her in confidence. Maybe it's contradicting you in front of friends, making you look foolish or uninformed, and when you bring it up later, oh, you're being too sensitive. It was just a joke. Can't you take a little teasing? I was just being honest. Let me paint you a picture. You're at dinner with friends, maybe couples you know, maybe her friends, doesn't matter. The conversation turns to careers, ambitions, dreams. You mention something you're working on, a project, a goal, something you're excited about. And she laughs. Not a supportive laugh, not an encouraging laugh, but that dismissive laugh that says, yeah, right. And then she says something like, he's always talking about these big plans, but nothing ever happens, or that's his latest obsession next month. It'll be something else, or my personal favourite. He thinks he's going to be the next successful person in your field, but can't even minor failing she brings up. The table goes quiet for a moment. People shift uncomfortably. Someone changes the subject. And you sit there, burning with humiliation, but you smile, you laugh it off, you play along because what else can you do? Make a scene? Look like you can't take a joke? Seem insecure? So you swallow it. You forgive it. You tell yourself she didn't mean it that way, that you're reading too much into it, that it's not a big deal. But here's what actually happened. She just showed everyone at the table that she doesn't respect you. She showed them that it's okay to mock you, to dismiss you, to not take you seriously. And worse, she showed you that she feels comfortable disrespecting you in public, that she's so sure you won't do anything about it that she can humiliate you in front of others. And every time you let it slide, every time you forgive without consequences, you reinforce her belief that you're weak, that you're someone who can be disrespected without fear of repercussion. The fifth situation, and this one is the relationship killer that nobody talks about, when she makes your relationship public property. She tells her mother every detail of your fights. She discusses your problems with her friends. She asks her co-workers for advice about your relationship. She posts cryptic messages on social media that everyone knows are about you. Suddenly your relationship isn't between two people anymore. It's a committee decision. It's a group project. It's public entertainment. You know what this does? It destroys any chance of intimacy, of privacy, of that sacred space between two people where problems can be worked out without outside interference. But more than that, it destroys your position because now you're not just dealing with her opinion of you. You're dealing with her mother's opinion, her friends' opinions, her social circle's collective judgment. You become the bad guy in a story told by someone else, unable to defend yourself, unable to present your side, just the villain in her narrative. I knew a man, good man, trying to work through some issues with his wife. Normal stuff, communication problems, intimacy issues, the kind of things every couple faces. But she told everyone. Her mother knew every detail. Her sister got regular updates. Her friends became her advisory board. And you know what happened? Every time they had a disagreement, she came armed with the opinions and advice of 5 other people. My mum thinks you're being controlling. Sarah says that's emotional abuse. Everyone agrees you're being unreasonable. He wasn't in a relationship with his wife anymore. He was in a relationship with a tribunal, and every time he forgave this breach of privacy, every time he let it slide that she was airing their dirty laundry to anyone who would listen, he gave away more of his power, more of his authority, more of his position as a man in that relationship. Now, let me tell you something about all of these situations, something crucial that most men miss. None of these things happen in isolation. They're all connected. They're all tests. They're all moments where she's evaluating whether you're a man worthy of respect or just another guy she can walk all over. When you forgive the hormone excuse, you show her that your dignity is negotiable. When you forgive the drunk disrespect, you show her that her contempt for you has no consequences. When you let her undermine your authority with the children, you show her that you're not really the man of the house. When you laugh off public humiliation, you show her that your pride means nothing. When you accept your private life becoming public entertainment, you show her that you have no boundaries. And piece by piece, forgiveness by forgiveness, excuse by excuse, you disappear. Not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly, inevitably, until one day you're a ghost in your own life. You're the guy who pays the bills but has no say. You're the one who's there but doesn't matter. You're the man who isn't really a man anymore, just a presence, a convenience, a resource. You want to know the really sick part? The part that nobody tells you? She doesn't even want you to forgive these things. Deep down, in that primal part of her that evaluates men, that decides who's worthy of her best behavior and who gets her worst, she wants you to stand up. She wants you to have boundaries. She wants you to be the kind of man who won't tolerate disrespect. But every time you forgive without consequences, you fail that test. Every time you let it slide, you prove you're not that man. And here's where most men get it completely wrong. They think consequences mean being angry, being violent, being abusive. No. That's not strength. That's weakness. That's not boundaries. That's loss of control. Real consequences are calm, measured, and non-negotiable. Real consequences are delivered without emotion, without drama, without threats. Real consequences are simply the natural result of unacceptable behavior. She uses her period as an excuse to disrespect you. The consequence is distance. Not angry distance, not punitive distance, but the natural distance that comes when someone shows you they can't control themselves around you. You remove yourself from the situation. You become less available. You don't argue, you don't explain, you just create space. And when she asks what's wrong, I don't allow anyone to speak to me that way. When you're ready to communicate with respect, I'm here. Until then, I have other things to focus on. She humiliates you while drunk. The consequence is immediate, not the next day when she's sober and sorry. Right then, in that moment, you leave. You don't make a scene, you don't argue, you simply leave. And when she sobers up and wants to talk about it, your behavior was unacceptable. I won't be around you when you drink if that's how you choose to act. This is not a negotiation. She undermines your authority with the children. The consequence is a private conversation where you make it crystal clear that this stops now. Not a request, not a discussion, a statement of fact. When you undermine me in front of the children, you damage not just my authority but the stability of this family. It stops now, or we need to reconsider how we're raising these children together. She humiliates you in public? The consequence is immediate and visible. You don't laugh it off, you don't play along. You look her directly in the eyes and say, "That's inappropriate," and change the subject. And later, in private. Public disrespect is a deal breaker for me. It doesn't happen again. She makes your relationship public property. The consequence is a boundary so firm it could be made of steel. Our relationship is between us. When you involve others, you destroy the intimacy and trust between us. If you need to discuss our issues with someone, we go to a professional together. Otherwise, our business stays our business. You see what these consequences have in common? They're not emotional reactions. They're not punishments. They're not attempts to control or manipulate. They're simply the natural result of someone crossing a line that should never be crossed. They're what happens when a man knows his worth and refuses to accept less than respect. But here's the thing, and this is where most men fail: consequences only work if you're prepared to follow through completely. If you set a boundary and then cave when she cries, when she apologizes, when she promises to change, you're worse off than if you never set the boundary at all. Because now she knows your boundaries are just words. Now she knows your consequences are just threats. Now she knows you're all talk and no action. This is why most men can't do this, not because they don't know what to do, but because they're not prepared for what happens when you actually enforce consequences. She might get angry. She might threaten to leave. She might cry and play the victim. She might turn others against you. She might withhold affection, intimacy, cooperation. And most men, faced with these reactions, cave. They forgive, they forget. They go back to being the understanding, patient, mature man who accepts disrespect in the name of love. But here's what those men don't understand. When you cave, when you abandon your consequences, you don't save your relationship. You destroy your position in it. You become less of a man in her eyes. You become someone who can be manipulated, controlled, disrespected without consequence. And paradoxically, you become less attractive, less desirable, less worthy of her best behavior. The men who maintain their position, who keep respect, who have women who treat them well, they're not perfect. They're not without flaws. They're not some impossible standard of masculinity. They're simply men who understand that respect is non-negotiable. They're men who know that forgiveness without consequences is just weakness disguised as virtue. They're men who would rather be alone than be disrespected. And here's the brutal truth that will make some people angry but needs to be said. If you've been forgiving these things, if you've been letting these invisible disrespects slide, it might already be too late for your current relationship. She might have already categorized you as weak, as a pushover, as someone unworthy of respect. And once that categorization is made, once she's internalized that you're not a man who demands respect, it's almost impossible to change her mind. Why? Because every attempt to establish boundaries now will be seen as fake, as an act, as you trying to be something you're not. She'll test you harder. She'll push back more. She'll create drama to see if you really mean it this time. And most men, already weakened by months or years of accepting disrespect, won't have the strength to weather that storm. This is why prevention is everything. This is why you have to establish consequences from the beginning. This is why the first time she crosses one of these lines, you have to respond with calm, measured, non-negotiable consequences. Because once you let it slide, once you establish the pattern of forgiveness without consequences, you're fighting an uphill battle that most men lose. But let's say you're reading this and recognizing yourself. Let's say you're that man who's been forgiving, who's been understanding, who's been accepting disrespect in the name of keeping the peace. What do you do now? First, you have to accept that changing this dynamic will be hard. Harder than if you'd established boundaries from the beginning. You're not just setting new boundaries, you're breaking old patterns. You're not just demanding respect, you're changing the entire framework of your relationship. Second, you have to be prepared for resistance. Massive resistance. She's comfortable with the current dynamic. She benefits from it. She's not going to give it up easily. When you suddenly start enforcing consequences, she's going to react strongly. She might accuse you of changing, of becoming controlling, of not being the man she fell in love with. This is a test. This is her trying to push you back into your old role. If you cave here, you're done. Third, you have to be consistent. Not sometimes. Not when you feel like it. Not when it's convenient. Every single time she crosses a line, there must be consequences. Every single time she disrespects you, you must respond appropriately. This consistency is what will eventually change the dynamic, if it can be changed. Fourth, and this is crucial, you have to be prepared to walk away. If you're not prepared to lose the relationship, you've already lost your position in it. This isn't about threatening to leave. This isn't about ultimatums. This is about knowing deep in your core that you'd rather be alone than disrespected. When she senses this, when she really understands that you're not bluffing, that's when things might change, or they might not, and you have to be okay with either outcome. Look, I know this is hard to hear. I know it goes against everything you've been taught about being a good partner, about compromise, about understanding. But those things only work when there's mutual respect. When respect is gone, when you're being diminished and disrespected in these invisible ways, all the compromise in the world won't save you. All the understanding in the world won't make her respect you. All the forgiveness in the world won't restore your position. The only thing that works is consequences. The only thing that maintains respect is boundaries. The only thing that keeps you from becoming nothing in her eyes is refusing to accept being treated like nothing. Every man reading this has a choice to make. You can continue down the path of forgiveness without consequences, of understanding without boundaries, of acceptance without respect. You can keep telling yourself that you're being mature, that you're being a good partner, that this is what love looks like. And slowly, inevitably, you'll disappear. You'll become nothing in her eyes, nothing in your children's eyes, nothing in your own eyes. Or you can decide right now, today, that respect is non-negotiable, that boundaries are essential, that consequences are mandatory, that you'd rather be alone with your dignity than together without it. This isn't about being harsh or cruel or controlling. This is about being a man who knows his worth and refuses to accept less. The invisible disrespects will keep coming. The tests will continue. The excuses will be offered. The question is, will you keep forgiving without consequences? Will you keep accepting the unacceptable? Will you keep diminishing yourself in the name of keeping the peace? Or will you finally understand that when you forgive these things without consequences, you don't just lose her respect, you lose yourself. You become a shadow of who you could be, a ghost of who you were, nothing in the eyes of the person who should respect you most. The choice is yours. But understand this. Every time you forgive without consequences, you're choosing to become less. Every time you accept disrespect, you're choosing to disappear. Every time you let these invisible cuts slide, you're bleeding out your masculine essence drop by drop until there's nothing left. Don't be nothing. Don't accept being nothing. Don't forgive your way into nothingness. Be the man who has boundaries. Be the man who enforces consequences. Be the man who'd rather stand alone with respect than live together with contempt. Because in the end, if you forgive these things once without knowing what you're really forgiving, without understanding what you're really accepting, you'll be nothing in her eyes. And once you're nothing, once you've allowed yourself to be diminished to that point, there's no coming back. There's no recovery. There's just the slow, painful realization that you gave away your power one forgiveness at a time until there was nothing left to give. Don't be that man. Don't become nothing. Don't forgive without consequences. Your dignity, your respect, your very essence as a man depends on it.